Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We are back. Welcome to MID Declassified, the show where we talk about the most consistent movie franchise in all of cinematic history, Mission Impossible franchise. If you are new here, if this is your first time on the channel, if this is your first time on MID Classified, this is your first time here on PLD projects in general, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. I believe we're on 420 now, so on our way to 500 subscribers. I am joined by my co-host, the man whose name is on the tin, Mr. PLD. How you doing, sir? You've had a fairly busy week. You were off out in nature, growing a bit of scruff.
Yeah, a little bit. I was, a couple weeks ago, I went to New York City for Christian Harloff's The Big Thing podcast. It was a successful live event, which was very cool. A big show, lots of fun. Got to hang out a lot. Got to see some people like Paige for Betty and Adam Collins and Marisol McKee, of course, Christian, Kate, and Brett. And actually, the funny part is after the after party thing, we all ended up going back to like Mark Ellis's hotel room with Kate Mulligan, and he kept throwing Coors Light at me, and I couldn't refuse a Coors Light from Mr. Ellis, so we just ended up getting drunk, and it was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I also ended up picking up something else. I don't know where, but I ended up getting the big COVID again, which definitely struck me down. Luckily, no one else seems to have gotten. I got to make sure everybody knew that it happened. But
are you sure it was COVID and not CauseVid?
Maybe. Could have been, absolutely. But I was going to record. It's funny, it really had a big impact on the channel, of course. This is my first time recording, by the way. Anyone knows. I mean, I don't know what schedule-wise is going to end up working out, but this is my first time recording in a while. I was about to record Two Mediocre White Dudes on film on Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, an episode that
literally hours before, right?
It was not even hours, like literally minutes before. I was really ready to do it. I was excited about it. PJ and I couldn't wait to get it out there, especially before Dial of Destiny came out. I kind of had been feeling, on Sunday, I got back on Saturday night. Sunday, I kind of felt like shitty, but it kind of was like, it's just kind of like hangover from the weekend, kind of like I, partied a little bit and was tired and didn't think much of it. Monday, I got a little worse, like, that's really shitty. But COVID didn't even pass my mind. Saturday, I get ready to record with PJ. I set up the StreamYard link, and I kind of was really starting to feel shitty. And I was like, you know what? I should check. I should just go check. Sure enough, positive. Fuck me. I had to go, so I had to cancel our podcast. I canceled our podcast as well. No more Holy Snow's done that. I couldn't do anything, so I immediately been put out of work. As you know, I can't do podcasting while I'm out of work. It doesn't look good optical-wise, and I'm too sick to do my job. I'm too sick to podcast. Even though I wasn't feeling too bad. I mean, it only went down for a day or two really badly. Like for about that night, I got really bad, and Wednesday was pretty shitty. I got back to the point, but then after my 5 days mandatory, I was ready to be able to travel, and I did some vacation. I masked up, triple masked, everything else. Went out to vacation in the wilderness, as you say. So at least I was able to get free out there. But the great news is I didn't go to work. I'm able to guard my scruff. I work at a job that I have it's like the Yankees style of grooming. You can only have a mustache and not a beard. It's like 70s police detectives kind of thing. You only have a mustache, but I like the beard, so I like to grow it a lot. If you look, I'm definitely getting grayer and grayer as I get older and older. So it's kind of scary.
I don't want to say anything, but
yeah, it's definitely. It was salt and pepper a couple years ago. It's definitely more salt than pepper at this point. What can I say? But that's back to here. I'm finally able to record. We're gonna get a lot of stuff in really quickly over the next couple of days to kind of try to catch up before we get back on schedule. So I'm psyched to be here doing Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. I gotta say, we went into Mission Impossible 3. Of course, you, and Matty Kearns joined us as a seasonal co-host. And we all said how that was our favorite episode, for installment of the Mission Impossible franchise. And this one, I hear PJ keep on knocking on the door saying that this one is, in fact, the greatest of the Mission Impossible franchise.
Can I just say?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think mine's changed.
Oh, interesting. Well, PJ, be glad to hear that. What I will say about that.
Not this one.
Oh, well, we're going to talk about that. That's right, because Matty got to see Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. But we're not going to talk about that here. We're not going to talk about that yet because actually...
By the time you've watched this, the non-spoiler review will be up on the channel, so make sure you go check that out.
That's right. So we will not be talking anything about Dead Reckoning at this point. We're going to wait and see, and we'll talk about that later. Actually, that's a nice tease. Nice tease. Actually, I was going to ask you about that. I'll ask you about that later.
I will say it does make one of our categories harder.
Okay. Fair enough. But the funny thing is, I was going to say real quick about PJ and liking this one best, for example, is that this it does lend credence to the fact that this is probably the greatest, our most consistent franchise, I should say, because I could listen to arguments for almost all of these films as which is the best and not completely dismiss them, except for 2.
Even
although I'll give 2 his credit. 2 has the greatest soundtrack of the bunch, by far, as far as I'm concerned.
I would say 2 is like the Force Awakens of Mission Impossible. It's like, it's not the best, but it's like the best of, it's like the, like, really good. Like, I heard a phrase the other day, shout out to this is radio host James O'Brien. He said the greatest quote I've ever heard, because it also, you speak about you're doing the Indiana Jones reviews and everything. It made me think of what I thought of Dial of Destiny is, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And I was like, that is Mission Impossible 2 if I ever heard it.
I like that.
Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
Okay. All right. I'll give you that. I'm not going to argue it for best though at all. But I do think that 5 is a definitely, it's one of my favorites, and I can see why PJ likes it so much, for example. But,
yeah.
So we'll get into that. So go ahead. Why don't you get into that?
Yeah. So let's get into our very first category, which is called Your Mission. This is where Paul and I just have a casual discussion about the movie, run through some of the points. And the first thing I want to bring off the bat, this is quite a fun fact. Tom Cruise was on the Graham Norton show. And this was a while ago. This was during the promoting of this movie. And he said when his mom found out about the plane stunt at the start of the movie, her reaction was simply, I just don't need to know anymore. Like, she was literally just like, whatever, just don't. She hit that point with her son where she was like, whatever you do, I just don't need to hear about it.
I get it. I totally get it.
Which, it just speaks to how every movie he is now one-upping. They're like, one of the main things is like, how do we one-up what we did in the last one in terms of batshit crazy stuff?
Well, that's what we said last time when we did Ghost Protocol. That was the beginning of that kind of run. We're going to go through and go through every single movie's going to try to up the bar in some kind of way. And generally it succeeds. Even if it goes sideways sometimes, I still get, like, I still love Burj Khalifa is probably one of my favorites of the franchise still.
Oh, yeah.
But I still think that these are awesome too. I mean, I talked about this with my son, who has been kind of not completely getting into movies completely, but he's been seeing Dead Reckoning trailers and things of that nature. And I talked to him about it, and I just showed him a video kind of the stunts he's done. He's like, this guy is nuts. I'm like, yeah, he basically is.
I mean, he broke 2 Guinness World Records
with
this movie in learning to hold his breath for 6 minutes underwater. That's insane.
I guess it was broken for Avatar. I guess that is what I heard. And Kate Winslet actually broke the record, which is impressive. I said, "Go, Kate!"
That is very impressive. God damn, holding your breath, like, I can barely do it for 2, let alone 6. That's insane.
It is.
So let's get into this with the breakdown and the discussion in this movie. So we start off. Ethan Hunt, he's intercepted a shipment of nerve gas being moved by the Syndicate. Now, at the start...
The Syndicate is real.
The Syndicate is real. We heard about it at the very last moment of Ghost Protocol.
Right.
So we were like, okay, this is obviously going to lead into something. And that kind of started this through arc now of the Syndicate being this main big bad. And the Syndicate is made up of rogue field operatives from various intelligence agencies that Ethan has been tracking for a while now. So he goes to like this IMF station in London, which is in a record store, which I'm actually familiar with. I've been to that record store. I know where it is. And he's getting his debrief for his mission. As he does, he picks up the record player from the young lady working in there. It's very hipster vibes, and he's going through playing. It's where he plays jazz. You know why I can't remember the name of the gentleman, but they're like, why did they call him this? And it's just like all these little like speaking in tongues, speaking in code.
Right.
And he goes to play the music, and it comes up on the screen, and the Syndicate has infiltrated the IMF, and it's the Syndicate that's talking to him. And while he's in the booth, he's being gassed. And then he looks to the side, and there is our villain, who we will name very shortly, holding a gun to the young operative's head.
Yes.
When you first saw that, of the fact that it's such a scene where it's like, oh, we're getting comfortable, like this is where Ethan's going to get the mission. Cool, we can relax here, and then you're suddenly thrown straight into it right away. What was your first impression of that?
I honestly, I thought that was a wonderful way to do it, because just like you said, you're kind of like, there's certain beats the Mission Impossible movies hit. And we had, of course, the big opening sequence, which was the plane sequence, which was fun, of course. And we get this, you expect it to kind of slow down for a little bit before you ramp back up. This is like, okay, we have our first thing, which is not really completely related to the rest of the movie. I mean, it's there, but it's, you know what it is. It's still kind of on that pathway. To get there, though, and all of a sudden you're just like, wait, what's going on? You start hearing like what they're saying is like, this has, what that's the Syndicate. Wait, what's happening? And you kind of almost confuse it, almost like this just goes really quickly. It's like, wait, I don't think I was ready for this quite yet. But it's really nice, and I thought it was a nice little twist on things. And it really just sets the tone. Like, this is going to be a little different. It's they're a little more dangerous than the rest of the crew had been so far that Ethan Hunt and team has faced. This is no Douglas Gregory Scott.
And it is kind of, this movie, you still have those comedic beats that you had before, like in the plane sequences you mentioned. Like, you have the moment where it's like the package is still on board. Yeah, we get it. There's still the banter between all the team, and it's just like it goes from that to Ethan hanging off the side of a jet, off of a big like Hercules massive plane, to he's strolling through London at night. It's very calm. He goes into a record store, sits down. He's about to get his mission. Then suddenly, what the hell? Like, and it's also like the IMF can be penetrated.
Right.
Like, we haven't seen that yet, other than Ethan doing it.
Right. Well, I mean, we did get Billy Crudup in 3, technically speaking, although he was still.
Yeah.
I mean, although he was actually trying to do things the right way. I mean, it's kind of a little bit of a weird situation there, but more like he didn't really infiltrate, more that he went bad after he was involved. So slightly different, I guess. So I guess that makes sense, though. I love that, but wait, I just want to bring it up real quick. The funny that was, I think Jeremy Renner was great in a different kind of role. Like, I expected him to be. The first time I saw this film, I was a little disappointed that he wasn't like really a part of the action as much in the beginning. Yeah. Like, I feel like, he's the suit role. I kind of liked him with Ethan and the team. That gets helped towards the end of the movie, but I think that he really does his job perfectly, and is a good big part of the humor of this film. The package is still on board. The package is on board. That follows up with a later scene with that we'll talk about soon, I'm sure, with Al, but the whole thing. I cannot confirm or deny any operations that are, unless the senator gives me directed cut, whatever. It's exactly.
It's like when Luther's like, we need to hack a Russian satellite, and he goes, I can't authorize that. And Luther's like, that's why I didn't ask you, because the package is still on board.
right.
So but it's funny you bring that, because that leads into the next scene of, I love a good courtroom scene in a movie. I love like courtroom dramas. They're so good. And this is where we see Alec Baldwin for the first time as CIA Director Alan Hunley.
Yes.
And he's like pleading the case for the IMF to be shut down.
Yes.
Just because of the recent destruction caused in Russia, like the mission in the Kremlin. And it's very much seeing like the two of them going back and forth.
Right.
And you know that there's going to be some friction there throughout the movie, but we know where it leads later in the franchise. So it's really good to see the start of that tension It's almost like competitive, but like Brent is just there, cocky, sarcastic. Like he's got this. When we first meet him, he's very much like quiet analyst. Like almost does like what he's told, playing it by the book. This one, he's like completely switched. He's not playing it by the book. He's just like playing to his and the IMF self-interest. He doesn't care about the CIA.
Right. Yeah, no, you're right. I love Alec Baldwin in general, to be honest with you, as far as this, especially when he's in this kind of role. He's a great, I don't love him as a leading man, but he's great in that kind of support role. He adds a little bit of.
Is he a shit weasel?
I don't think I can call him a full shit weasel because of how things end. A shit weasel would never end up with the team to a degree. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. In charge of the team, really, to be completely honest, at the end. He's actually, because he was very intelligent and he knows when to back down eventually. Like that's a great thing about his character is that a normal situation, I could see this character being one of the guys who never backs down, is always against Ethan and team. And even at the end, he'd like hold tight because he said they were wrong, so they have to be wrong, kind of thing. When put and thrust into the situation, he does pivot a little bit. And when Ethan kind of gives him the out in order to make everything okay, he takes it because he's smart and he understands that what they're doing is important. So I can't see him as a shit weasel. In the beginning, I can see where he could have been a shit weasel. He was like a shit weasel potential. He had shit weasel potential.
Shit weasel adjacent.
Yeah, there you go. Shit weasel adjacent.
I will say I did love the little callback to the first movie. I don't know if you caught it, where they talked about how they've been at odds with the CIA ever since Ethan broke into the CIA HQ in Langley. I thought that was a nice little callback to the first movie.
I did like that quite a bit. Yes, it's good stuff.
But then we have Ethan wakes up and he's held in a torture chamber by ex-KGB agent Yannick Winter, also known as the Bone Doctor.
Yes. Now, this guy, just having a name like that is spot on what you need for these kind of bad guys. Give him a bad name. Make him look mean. You don't need to do much with him. You don't have to have these big supporting or big background or anything else. You know he's a scary MFer. You know that you don't want him to be alone with Ethan for too long. He's
a henchman in Skyfall as well.
That's right. I totally forgot about that. Now you mentioned that. Yeah, that's right. I haven't watched Skyfall in forever. Yeah, that's true. He's a good henchman. He's a good bad guy that way.
And this is also where we get the entrance of possibly the most beautiful woman that I've ever seen with my own two eyes.
My other wife,
Rebecca Ferguson, as I can always say I keep wanting to say Isla Frost. It's Ilsa Frost. It's Ilsa Frost.
I will say right now, Kim knows. I've already told Kim that she is my other wife, and Kim agrees, understands. I just love this woman so much in every role she's ever been in. I just recently binged during vacation time the show Silo on the Apple Plus, which is actually really cool sci-fi show. I'll probably talk about it later on one of my Patreon exclusive. What am I watching on a podcast? But I really, if you haven't watched it, go watch it. But she's like leading it. She is phenomenal.
I mean this with all due respect. Every head at that premiere turned when she walked in the room.
It doesn't surprise me. She just exudes this charisma. You want to know her. You want to hang out with her. And she's gorgeous. And she's charismatic. And she kicks ass.
She's funny, too.
She's funny. She cracks jokes. She actually has closest thing I've ever seen to chemistry with Tom Cruise, and it's all on her end.
Side tangent. Did you see the pictures of the two of them at the Rome premiere?
I have not, no.
They're like really like cuddly buddy.
Oh, really?
Like really close to the point where I'm like, has she finally like cracked
the code?
Cruise?
Cracked the cruise code? Cracked the cruise code. I don't know, baby. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, she's phenomenal. Like she is phenomenal at everything she does. Yeah. I love this woman. I loved her in Dr. Sleep. I loved her in Greatest Showman. She's just Dune, of course. Yeah, Dune, great. Just speaking of that, Dune 2 coming out. I can't wait for that as well. Yeah, she is just phenomenal. Like you could put her in any role, in any movie, and I automatically want to see it.
She really is fantastic,
and she's great in this specific role too, particularly when it comes down to because she does that great mix of action, comedy, star power, and she fits the role well in terms of because you don't know what side she's going to jump on. It kind of jumps back and forth on sides, and She does it credibly, but you want her to be a good guy. You want her to be helping you out.
You never know.
But you never know. There's time you're like, fuck, damn it, she did it to me again. But
she because she like this moment, you're right, and I think it's because she has that kind of mystique about her, like her personally, Rebecca Ferguson, that translate over to the screen. Like you mentioned, she has that like air about her that you're like, is she gonna help or is she gonna hinder? Because at this moment, she helps Ethan escape,
right,
and you're like, oh, cool, she's on the team. Okay, cool.
But then she doesn't. I love the part when she closed the door on him. She's like, "You go," and he's like, she's trying to keep her cover. You're like, I mean, I kind of got what was going on right at that point. As soon as I got what's going on, all right, she's an agent for somebody. Obviously, she had the accent, so it's got to be it. It's got to be that kind of thing. But she's trying to keep cover. All right, okay, so that makes sense to me. Like, this is cool. Okay, well, I can't wait to see where this is going to go next.
Then we get to one of my actual favorite scenes in the movie. Is we get 6 months down the line. And Ethan, it looks like the CIA, they're tracking Ethan down, and they think he's in Paris. They're about to raid on his apartment. Everything's there. He's got the Charlie Day strings on the wall tracking the Syndicate.
Yep.
They barge in. Lights are on, but no one's home.
I love it.
And Ethan's there doing pull-ups in another apartment with like a cell phone with the camera so he can see what's going on when they come in.
I've always loved that. I've always loved that kind of thing, where I love that. It's a great editing technique that movies use, and they have you just going back. They flip back and forth. They did it in, I believe they did it in, I want to say, Civil War, also with Bucky and Cap.
Yeah,
similar situation like that. I love when they do that, though. Even though I get fooled every time. A little part of me always goes at the very end, right before it happens, like, he's not in that room, is he?
No.
Just at half for like, of course he's not in that fucking room.
And then that leads to, which I think is one of the scenes that showed me that Simon Pegg is not just like a comedy actor. And I always say this, comedy actors are also some of the best dramatic actors on the planet, and I think it's because of their part, like largely down to their ability to improvise on the spot. And we see Benji, he's back at the desk, he's playing Halo, and then his supervisor comes up behind him and he's like, oh shit. I can't tell you when I worked in tech how many times that was me playing Minecraft. Like we used to have a server dedicated to Minecraft, and anytime the boss would come in, we'd be like, shit, turn off. So I felt Benji on that one. But then Hunley pulls him into an office, and we learn that he has to take a weekly polygraph test.
Right. Yeah, it's so intense because like you figure out that like, okay, so it makes sense. Obviously, it's not just Ethan that they're going after. They're going after anybody who is connected to him in any way, especially with Alec Baldwin taking over the story, so to speak. And it's a great scene because obviously you learn it's slowly doled out. Because the first time he goes to, you're like, what is this? And then like you see, okay, it's a polygraph. Okay, and then you're like, oh, this happens all the time. But he has that moment, of course, where they ask him like if he's friends, and he comes out and says, he's not friends with me anymore. I'm not friends with him and everything else. And it comes off true. You're like, fuck. Then they had that just that small little blip that everybody missed at the very end. I'm kind of like, nice.
Because there was it was a sign of a true like field agent, and how far Benji has come as a character from like he's gone from the desk to the field. Now he's back on the desk, but he still has that field operative in him, and he's had the rub. He's had like the rub from Ethan, the same as Brant has had. That where like he can really turn it on, and he's like, you think I want to be friends with him? Like after what he's done, that where he's left me, the position he's left me in, where I have to come and take this bloody polygraph test every day. No, he's not my friend. But he doesn't say, have you heard from him?
Right.
He just completely twists the words, and then you have Hunley's just like, okay,
all right.
It's brilliant. But then the person who's not his friend sends him tickets to an opera in Vienna.
Right.
Which, as soon as he did that, I was like, because you're like, was he expecting those things? No, that's obviously from Ethan, but he's like so excited to get these tickets. Like he opens them up and he just has this massive like, well, hey, I'm going to opera in Vienna, awesome. But then it's just like, you didn't like enter a competition for those, did you? That's Ethan trying to get hold of you. And as soon as those cogs start to turn, and like Benji goes to Vienna, and as soon as he steps off that the subway train, I'm like, Ethan's gonna be there to meet him. And sure enough, brown envelope, boom, straight to Benji's chest.
So good. So good. You know it's happening. You know, you're ready for it to happen, and then like there it is. He's got the glasses come out. It's great to see him come back together. They're connected again. I love these two together. I do love these two together. I think Benji has been a great addition to the team ever since 3, and this shows where he is kind of paid his dues and really is a member of the team fully here. I mean, he was great in 3. He was there at 4. 5 was like his coming out party, I think, to a degree.
Yeah. I agree. I think that this was the moment where like Simon Pegg especially was like, okay, I've done this a couple times now. Like I'm used to it. I'm in the groove. I've worked with Tom enough. I know how he works. Like the both of them just clicked on every single scene that they were in. And you put 2 names out there that you would think have incredible chemistry on screen together. Tom Cruise and Simon Pegg is not one that I would have like put out there.
Right. And I think that's the reason why he's lasted so long, because 3 did great. 4 was a great time as well, as far as like, remember when the 4 where they invaded the Kremlin, that whole segment was great, fun comic moment. Yeah. At this point, they really feel like, okay, I can be a field, like the joke was he was a field agent in 4. This time he actually proves that he's a good field agent now. He actually got to that point where he can be outside of the computer field and get the job done if need be.
Yeah. And he does go on to get the job done, because they're like, okay, we're going to track the blonde gentleman
right
that we saw in London.
Right.
They go to Vienna, but instead they find Ilsa Frost waiting there to assassinate the Chancellor.
What a great sequence this really is, quite frankly.
So good.
The opera sequence is so good because there's so many things going on. They do a wonderful job. McQuarrie does a wonderful job of directing, because you kind of like, you think you know kind of what's going on, but then you're not all the way there and all the way sure. There's a lot of moving pieces. You're like, okay, when I think I have this figured out, there's enough of a twist where it's like, oh, maybe not. But seeing him there, seeing Rebecca Ferguson there, seeing the thugs there, seeing Simon there, and we see, of course, Simon Pegg as well. It's just a great action sequence, trying to get things done, even though you're in front of a live audience watching a show. Yeah,
I love the shot where we first see Rebecca Ferguson in her perch, because it shows like like she's an elegant killer, because she's wearing the dress, and like the camera starts, like it goes up her leg, you see the dress, like this really beautiful elaborate dress, and then she's there holding the sniper rifle,
right?
And it's just like, that sets her up perfectly. She's this mysterious, elegant assassin, and you have the which I thought was really innovative. You have like Ethan jumping from like rope to rope to try and catch the assassins,
right?
And I thought that was again the sign of Mission Impossible doing these really innovative action sequences. And Ethan prevents the initial hit from going on, only for the Chancellor to get killed by a car bomb.
Right. I love the fact that he shoots. He stops the thing from happening by actually shooting him. He's shooting him in the arm to get him down, that he can't get shot in the head. Yeah, it's a great idea. I love that aspect of it. And I'll also, by the way, I got to mention the Tom Brady lookalike. That's like the Russian, or not the Russian. He's the agent dressed up in like the uniform or whatever. He looks like Tom Brady, but he gets killed by Simon Pegg. So.
I was like, I had to think about it, because obviously being English, I was like, what does Tom Brady look like again? Oh yeah, yeah, I agree that, because it was like, Ethan really will do anything to get the job done, and it's just like, of course he's going to shoot the Chancellor. Right. It's like, he's as they say later on, he's a man without a country at this point, so he can
Right.
essentially do whatever the hell he wants.
Absolutely.
So the sorry, go on.
No, go ahead. That's fine.
I was just going to move on to the next bit. If you had anything,
No, let's do it. I'll say last thing I'll say. I did like again. They get into the car and you have Rebecca Ferguson and Tom Cruise, Ethan and Ilsa having a discussion and trying to figure out what side is she on. Okay, so she's trying to. Is she double agent? Is she a triple agent? Is she a quadruple agent? I don't really know, but I still want to follow what's going on.
Benji tells Ethan to throw her out the car while it's moving. It's just like
It's so good. So
dude,
does she does it herself? She got to do it that way because it makes it look good.
Yeah, and there's the chasing because of how close Ethan and Benji were to the Chancellor's assassination. Hunley orders the Special Activities Division to capture or, if necessary, kill Ethan and Benji. So Benji's cover's blown at this point. Ethan's just taking him out of this cushy new desk job, thrown him back into the field, and now he's wanted for the murder of a political figure.
Ugh. Yeah.
Brent then convinces Luther to come back. Luther, who was absent from, I would say, quite a bit of he wasn't in 3.
Luther?
And oh no, he wasn't.
Luther was in everything. He was in all the episodes, and he wasn't in a lot of 4 in Ghost Protocol. He was only at the end of Ghost Protocol.
Yeah. Okay. And he wasn't too much in 3, I don't think.
He was. No, he was pretty much his normal team member. And he was
yeah, I would say so.
4 was the only time he really didn't have a large role, really, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. I just felt like this was like the first time since 2 that like Luther was a proper like in the mix, like member of.
Well, this is where this is where the years in between the between 2 and 3, and then 3 and 4 kind of sometimes can play havoc with you. I guess I assume that. Yeah, 4 he came back. 4 he came back at the very end. Now 5 he is full on in. I guess it comes down to in the new era of Mission Impossible, really, because the new era of Mission Impossible really is 4, 5, and 6, and he was only in that last part of 4. So that's why it makes sense.
But then Brent says you need to find them before Hunley does, but otherwise they're gonna end up being brought in or worse.
Right.
So then they go to Casablanca.
Yes,
of all places. Which, if you'd have said where they're gonna go, I would not have had Casablanca on the list. But Casablanca is a beautiful place. So
yeah,
if you got the money and you can shoot there, go for it.
Let's do it.
And this is where we find out the identity of the mysterious blonde man. It's rogue former MI6 agent Solomon Lane, played by Sean Harris.
Yes, not the right Harris, but it's okay. He does a good job.
Right. They're not related, are they?
No, they're not. I looked. I did check. I was like, that'd be kind of cool. Like I'd play his brother or something like that.
Yes, you would be the man to know. He is actually the head of the Syndicate.
They're also not related to Jared Harris either. They're bad guys. Has been in the computer, but
Would you have had Ed Harris play Solomon Lane?
I would love to have had Ed Harris play Solomon Lane. I think he could have done a job just as well. I mean, Solomon Lane is good at being creepy. I got to be like, he's got the voice that's very creepy and everything else. But as far as everything else goes, the action part of it and the more into it, I think Ed Harris could have pulled it off easily and been good with that. Easily. Although part of me would love to see Ed Harris doing the Alec Baldwin role too, to be honest with you. But that's just a different story.
Then the 3 of them, then this is the moment. They infiltrate a secret guarded facility beneath a power plant to retrieve a digital ledger stolen from Solomon Lane that contains the names of all the Syndicate operatives. And this is where we see the scene where Tom Cruise has to hold his breath for 6 minutes. And I love the comedic moment between the 3 of them where they're detailing, because they have like the mask situation again, right? It's just like, what about entry shafts? Nope. What about this way in? Nope. What about if we? And then you have the kind of foreshadowing of what would happen if Benji put on the mask.
Right.
Like we actually see what would happen.
So he gets to do it without doing it.
Yeah. And it just lends to the point that you brought up earlier on in this series, the masks slowly like phasing themselves out.
Right. Everything they can do, everything they can try to do. It's funny that way. Although I want to throw up there, they basically repeated a scene from Ghost Protocol, but I was okay with it. It's a sequence where basically it's kind of like we're going to talk about an impossible sequence, something somebody can do, and Simon Pegg would sit there and go, "Well, Ethan Hunt can do it," and Ethan's going to be like, "What the fuck?"
He's like, you've got to hold. I got to hold my breath for 2 minutes. Yeah, but then you've got to upload the thing. How long does that take? That's probably about another 2 minutes.
Like,
and then you have the active, like when he's in there, of like I can't remember what it is. It's like a fan, like actually coming round.
Yeah,
and it's like hitting him as he's going around. So like, not only does he have to like hold his breath for 6 minutes, he has the big ass fan coming around to hit him.
Yep.
And then he essentially dies underwater.
He absolutely dies. And then last minute, Rebecca Ferguson jumps in there and gets him out. And gets him out, and they has to do CPR on him and shock him and everything else.
Staying alive. And this is when we're like, oh, she's turned. She's back on the team.
Right.
Nope. It's Benji with the damn defibrillator.
He runs off, and she runs off with the drive. But it does lead to a great action sequence, the chase.
I love this chase.
Oh yeah. While Brant and Luther are searching for them, of course.
Another really good comedic moment. Not only when they go to get in the car, and Benji's like, "You just a few moments ago, you just died," and Ethan's like, "What?
What?"
he has no idea. And then he gets in the car, and he's essentially like driving half blind. And he gets to the stairs, and Benji's like, stairs. And it's like all over the place. But there's that one moment where Ethan hits the handbrake turn, crashes into a Jeep, and it's Brant and Luther in the Jeep. And they're just like,
each other. I'm gonna jump ahead. I'm gonna say now you're kind of spoiled. That's my favorite action sequence, by the way. Okay. That is my favorite. That's my favorite one. Because I love humor with my action, and it is the way it's shot, the slow kind of rolls that kind of pay the fails, and we're going. I'm like, found him.
I got. It's kind of a spoiler, but yeah, it's kind of my same as well. Because like when they go down the alley, and Ethan hits the handbrake turn again, hits the two bikes on the side of him.
Right.
Like the car goes fully horizontal going down this alleyway.
Right.
Hits it again because there's the guy on the bonnet of the car. Hits a handbrake turn again and uses the truck to knock him off, and then just drives away. I was like, holy shit.
Can I tell you? All right. Tom Cruise aside. Tom Cruise doing his thing aside. Ethan Hunt is fucking like, there's no way this guy. He died. He literally died, gets up, gets in this car, and he gets into a car wreck where he's flipping over left and right, then drives after Ilsa and on the motorcycle, and then has to crash out there too. It's a span of like 50 minutes. This guy's got to have like 17 concussions by now. He's dead. He is dead. I'm sorry, Ethan is dead.
As someone who has had multiple concussions, yes, that is ridiculous to like. Even the moment like where he comes running out of the base to get in the car, falls over the car and like goes face first onto the pavement. It's just like, ooh,
right.
Yeah, Benji's just like looking at him the whole time like, are you sure about this? Like, do you want me to drive? I can do it. And Ethan's just like, no, I'm gonna do it. But I know Tom loves motorbikes. He's been to the MotoGP a few times. I know he's a fan. He's been at Silverstone a couple times. I've been there. Just like he sits in the rich people part of the paddock, where we're the commoners in the stands. Right. I know he's especially a fan of one of the riders who has Top Gun written on the back of his leathers, and like the guy's name is actually Maverick. So to see him do he sees someone who is a fan of motorbike racing do a bike chase on this scale. I think it was in the Mission Impossible 2 episode. You and me talked about what would Mission Impossible version of the bike chase in Matrix Reloaded look like. We got it with this, and it was fucking awesome.
it was phenomenal on so many different levels, and it was such a long driving sequence, like a race sequence, but it didn't feel like its length at all. It felt like just perfectly for what we need to do.
And then he turns the corner and he sees Ilsa just standing there, and he's just
What
like, "Whoa!" And like, I also felt that was kind of a callback to 2 as well. The bit where he's with Naya on the cliff,
right?
And like he has to stop it, and like immediately, I felt like, oh, was that like a little callback to 2 there, but like flip the other way around,
right? It did feel a little much like she's really putting a lot of trust in him, but it did make for some fucking sweet for a sweet visual and everything else. I can't argue against this.
So Ilsa, she takes the key, she takes the data key, goes to London to meet her handler, who is the chief of MI6, Chief Atlee, who is 100% a shit weasel.
Oh, this is the definitive shit weasel. When you mentioned it before, I was going to mention this guy was awful in the worst way. But but he was so good at what he does, and like he looked like a shit weasel. He had this big punchable face, like, and the way he talked, you're just like, fuck this guy.
Yeah, he's essentially like, Ethan's a man with no country. Like, I'm not going to tell you that you need to kill Ethan Hunt.
Right.
You are going to go back to Lane. He's going to tell you to kill Hunt, and you're going to do it because you know what will happen if you don't. You know what we know, what only I and a few other people know about you, your real identity. And the CIA have been asking me about you. So if you don't want me to have a little chat with the CIA, you will kill Ethan Hunt. And you can see she's torn. Like she started to grow these feelings for Ethan Hunt, which is understandable. Yeah, all the ladies love Ethan. But
absolutely.
Then he deletes the data off of the disk, and it's just like you've set her up for failure.
Right. Oh, it's so sad. It's a tough place for her to be in. But it makes everything finally comes clear as to what's going on at that point. And we know that she is doing what she has to do. She really is on the side of Ethan to a degree. But she's because she's an agent of her own. She's Ethan's double in a way. She's basically as good as Ethan is, just in different kind of fashions. I mean, she doesn't do quite the stunts that Ethan does, but no. But as far as an agent goes, she's as successful of an agent as he is. It just sets up exactly what we need, and it sets up a possible romance angle, which I'm not going to ask you about, at least not yet. But like it kind of like it seems like every film goes a little bit further into that. And whereas I know he's married, obviously, to Julie, and Julie was the love of his life at that point and everything else. But Rebecca Ferguson, being who she is, Ilsa Faust, is a character that can actually live in Ethan Hunt's world and not be someone that Ethan has to be scared that he can't take care of. So it was definitely kind of a cool addition to the franchise, I think.
Yeah, she's absolutely like become definitely one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, absolutely.
In the franchise. But then we get the old switcheroo of Benji showing just how good he really is. Benji and Ethan, they get found by Brent and Luther. And it turns out, Benji's gotten quite good at the old sleight of hand trick.
Let's switcheroo there.
Because he copied the data from the facility, and they find it's called what do they call it? A red box,
right?
Which I believe wasn't that what Netflix was called before?
Red box was it
was Netflix.
No, Redbox is its own thing. It has actually its own thing. It has like at least in America, it has actually you go out to a grocery store and there's actually literally a red box, like a vending machine that you can get like DVDs out of and rent them, and then you turn it back and you slide the slot. It's kind of like the cheap way of having Blockbuster around still without having Blockbuster around.
But this in this case, in Britain, apparently it's an encrypted government form of data, which only the Prime Minister, in this case played by the great Tom Hollander, who I actually went to see Tom Hollander in a play a few weeks ago where it's about the life of Putin, and it's kind of like a satire play about like the rise of Vladimir Putin. And he is brilliant in it, but people may know him as Beckett from Pirates of the Caribbean.
You might know him from a lot of things. Tom Hollander.
Hollander, by the way, not Tom Holland.
Yeah,
we know
Tom
they're both
Holland.
British,
Sure.
both called Tom Holland, but Tom Hollander.
Tom Hollander is one of those people that I put in that Ed Harris category in terms of like he is in every movie he is in, he tends to make them better. He is just a person who knows his role in every film.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's high praise. He's one of those guys that I love seeing, like Tom Wilkinson and the other one. Mission Impossible used to have those happening a lot. I mean, I loved him in almost everything he's done. All the Pirates of the Caribbean. He was probably the best thing about the Pirates of the Caribbean movies outside of Jack Sparrow being Jack Sparrow. But he was in Bohemian Rhapsody as Miami Jim Beach, which I loved.
You're right, he was.
Yes, he was. He was in Bird Box. He was in Invisible Woman. He was in About Time, King's Man. He's in so many different things, and he always adds this real just charisma presence that it's something you look at. You're like, oh, I love this guy. I want to see him and do everything in this movie. Yeah. So yeah, I love that he was the prime minister because it made so much sense to me.
So they travel to London because obviously they need to get the prime minister to open it. And one thing that I thought was really interesting was the fact that they said that was Waterloo train station. That was not Waterloo train station. I go to Waterloo train station a lot. That was the XL Center where they held Star Wars Celebration.
Oh, okay, all right. That's I now I know. Now I know.
I don't know how they got one section of it to look like a train station with a train in it. Maybe that was CG, like superimposed in.
Right.
But that was 100% the XL Center. Anyone that was at Star Wars Celebration that rewatches this movie will look at that now and be like, oh, yeah, that was the part where I couldn't get any cell reception. Or that was the part where we were suffocated by hundreds of thousands of people walking around. But this is where they have one of my favorite moments where they meet Ilsa. But she is there kind of to set them up because Lane's waiting. They kidnap Benji, again showing why Billy would have been a better choice for the team at this point because Benji is sometimes...
you're wrong. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay to be wrong. Just say it. We all know that Billy couldn't wipe the hem of Simon Pegg's pants.
No. At this point he couldn't, but they use him to blackmail Ethan into, they say, you have to decrypt and deliver the data to me or I will kill Benji, because he knows that Benji is close to Ethan. He knows that Ethan cares about his team because he is former MI6. He probably has information on Ethan. He knows how Ethan works. And there is one moment where Ilsa even says, you're afraid you've met your match.
Right.
And she gives him the three options of you either, give Lane the disc, or you turn yourself in, or you come away with me and we forget this whole thing. And then you have Luther just oh no, because, and I'll get a little bit into it a little later, but he's seen Ethan do this before. The pretty woman fluttering his eyes saying leave this life, get away from here.
Right.
He's seen it before with Ethan. He's like, hell no, I ain't letting you go through that again. Then we get the moment where Benji gets kidnapped. We see Jeremy Renner doing the Tom Cruise run.
Yeah, he does do the Tom Cruise run, doesn't he? Not quite as good. Not quite as good.
No. But his arms are down a little bit, whereas Tom is full on Usain Bolt through the parking lot. They say, and he says, Luther, stay with Ilsa.
Right. Just
as he's walking up, Ilsa gone.
And Luther at this point is definitely more of a man in the chair than he is in any kind of active action sequence. The fact that he can get away from Luther did not surprise me. And there's no slight meant to Luther. Lincoln Graham, I love you, but I understand, brother. I understand.
It does. He's a fairly big, heavy set guy. If you want
that guy at this point,
if you want two sprinters, you send Ethan and Brent.
I bet you he's very dangerous over short distances. That's what I'll say. That's
Don't let him get a hold of you.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He just smush you. He crush you. But then they get the mission. They're like, hey, bring the data to us or Benji dies.
Right.
So then they go to Oxford, which I believe it was in Oxford. where they said that the Prime Minister, we see the Prime Minister there to meet with Atlee.
Right.
To Atlee and Brant. And also I'm missing something. I'm missing where they have the discussion where they're planning where they're going to be, and it seems like Brant is like, are you sure you want to do this? You're talking about kidnapping the Prime Minister of Great Britain. This is a terrible idea. I'll follow you on it, but I'm not happy about it. And then we see Brant in the phone booth calling Hunley, and you're like, dude, what the fuck? Like, whose side are you on, bro? It's like he was like reverting back to the Brant that was in the car when we first saw him. The pencil pushing, by the book, Brant. And you're kind of like, when you're first watching it, you're like, oh no, Brant, come on, dude.
Right.
Like you got so far.
Yeah, I remember when we watched that though, but it made sense. I liked how they pulled that because it was very obvious. Like of all the team members, he's the one you could kind of go, oh, is he doing that? Is he finally? Because he's always been that kind of guy who kind of like pulls back just a little bit. He's always been kind of Ethan's. I don't know, conscious is not the right word, but he kind of like holds Ethan to a level of.
He's that angel on the shoulder, and Ethan's the devil.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. He wants to make sure things are done properly enough that things aren't like a waste. Because Ethan's a wild card. Yeah, let's be honest. I mean, as much as he does and everything he does, he is a wild card, and most of the organizations would like to kind of rein him in a little bit. After everything's over, they're excited that they have him and he does a good job and he gets things done. But during it, they're kind of like, man, you gotta hold up just a little bit. This is how you get all this death and destruction that reigns through these movies. And Brant's been that guy a little bit to a degree, so it makes a little bit of sense. In fact, that's the setup, I think, for the whole beginning of the film, where he is the in charge guy who's protecting them, but he's also trying to work within the realm of the framework of how it's supposed to go.
Yeah. So then he gives Hunley the location of where they're going to be.
Right.
And Hunley, Brant, and Atlee go to meet the Prime Minister, who confirms that the Syndicate was a secret project set up by Atlee, which confirms our suspicion of Atlee's not one to be trusted.
Right.
Shit weasel completely. And it's a secret project to recruit former intelligence agents from all across the world and perform missions without any oversight. Complete plausible deniability for the Prime Minister, but the Prime Minister said no, you're not doing it. Didn't get past the planning stage, and then they're not as useless as we think they are, huh? Because it turns out Atlee was Ethan in a mask the whole time.
You know what? And that's the great thing about it. Like, like they did try to get away from it for a little bit. I think Chris McQuarrie looked and said, you know what? Let's lean into it. I just had Tom Cruise have 18,000 concussions. At this point, a mask is not any less unbelievable at this point. Let's just go all in. Yeah. And it's true. It's a great moment, but it's a great moment because that's what Alec Baldwin's character is, the moment I talked about before, where he pivots. Even though he was against to a degree, you see that he is willing to at least hear things out and try some things and at least switch the ballgame, especially because it's going to benefit him. Because they have this great little motion of like how he turned it so that Huntley saves the day. At least that's the story will be that Huntley saved the day from an international incident. So he's like, okay, I get that. I'll do that. Yes, I'll take care of this then.
Yeah. And you have the moment where like they reveal that the Syndicate is real, and you have Huntley. He's just like, the Syndicate's real.
Right.
It's kind of like that moment of like, the glass has just been shattered over him, and he's just like, oh. I've been messing up this entire time. Like I should have listened. And I love the moment where the real Atlee comes through as they're getting the biometrics to open up the red box. The real Atlee comes up the stairs. You see the two security guards, and the one security guard's like, we were told not to let anyone in, sir. By who? By you.
Freaked out.
It's like, what? He comes in and they're all waiting for him. He calls the two security guards in, And then Brant and Ethan close the door and trank them as well. And it's just like, dude, this was perfect.
Exactly. Love it. It's so good. Such a good the thriller that doesn't stop thrilling. That's what makes this so good. And I get the argument of people who say this is their favorite because it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop at all. Barely gives you time to breathe.
Yeah. He gets the confession Ethan gets the confession that he started the Syndicate without the Prime Minister's knowledge before Lane hijacked it. Ethan takes all the information after finding out that Atlee tried to frame Ilsa. He takes the knowledge, he opens it up, sees all the money that's coming from all these offshore accounts. You know, I think it was like 20 billion pounds or something like that of funds that, you know, the Prime Minister could just use to keep the Syndicate going. I believe he said for decades.
Yeah, decades.
So they could just go unchecked for decades. Prime Minister would have no accountability whatsoever. Ethan starts to memorize the information and then takes a drill to the drive.
So good. So awesome. I was all on board with it so much. Like, what the hell is he doing now? Oh my God.
Sorry, I've got the number here. I was wrong. It's 2.4 billion in numerous accounts. But that's a lot of money.
It absolutely is.
So they have an arranged meeting place, and Ethan arrives there, and we see Ilsa and Benji sitting there, and Benji's got an earpiece in, and he starts relaying everything that Lane is saying. When you look up and you see him say, "The time is up, Mr. Hunt," or something to that effect, it's just like, wow, like Lane has got what we think Lane has got Ethan cornered everywhere.
It's a great performance. It's a great performance from Simon Pegg during this sequence. He has the absolute horror look on his face, but he's still doing his job and he's still putting forth what Simon Lane is telling him. It's wonderful. I love it so much.
And then Ethan calls Lane's bluff because he's like, "Look, I've memorized the information. Let Benji go," because Benji's got like the bomb strapped to his chest.
Right.
And he's like, "Look, stop the timer. Let Benji go. I will come to you and I will tell you all the information."
Right.
And then you see Lane start to crack.
Yes.
Because he's like,
finally.
"But did I memorize all the information? There's no way I could have memorized all the information. Are you willing to take that gamble?" Which is interesting because Lane says earlier on in the movie that Hunt is a gambler.
Right.
And he's like, and then Ethan essentially proves him right here. But he's like, "Are you willing to take that chance?"
Right.
Because if you blow me up here, the drive's gone. I'm the only one that knows all the information. You kill me, then you lose it completely.
Because then he proves it. He actually goes, "I'll give you the money right now. Give it this code in right here," and he gets one in there. Like, holy shit, he actually does. He actually has his number right now. Oh my God. And Simon does crack. He has a moment. We walk back and forth, and finally he has that. I loved it because like turns quickly and stops it with like, of course, a couple point seconds, whatever.
Yeah, it was like 0.19 seconds left. It's just like if he hadn't have done it at that moment, like that would have been it.
Right.
So then we get the chase between Vinter's men, Ethan and Ilsa, who that Tower of London complex is so tricky to get around, like even just walking, because there's always so many, like that is a heavy tourist area.
Right.
So filming that must have been an absolute ball. Like obviously they would have sectioned it off, but it's not like in the States where like you can just walk straight down. Like we don't have things in blocks. Everything's like all twisted down different alleyways, different corners. So filming that chase scene must have been, that would have taken them a long time to do. Let's clear that way. Sure. And I loved how it ends, where they trap Lane in the bulletproof glass box, and then they gas him unconscious.
So good.
Calling it back. It was just like Ethan being like, "Okay, eye for an eye.
Right.
This is how you got me. I'm gonna get you back with it."
But I love how they do it secretly. Like we don't know. I love the fact it's one of those great heist movies where like you learn the plan as they're doing it, kind of thing, and you don't know what's going on necessarily. I mean, we learn of course, during this whole event that Brant was doing what was part of the plan to get Huntley involved, He wasn't really turning him in. He was getting Huntley there. And you see the whole thing go down. You see Simon go down in this hole, and you're kind of like, you see the lights go up. You're kind of like, oh, this is what the plan has been the entire time. That's awesome. And he's locked in, nothing he can do about it. He tries shooting his way out. He's trying his best. He starts like hanging like that. You don't get to see, because his character the whole time, Solomon Lane, has always been extremely calm. Extremely calm. Even when doling out death, even when doling out threats, even when things go wrong, he never quite like really lost control too much. He does here, and it's like you see him break. You're like, it's so satisfying, so satisfying. So he gets Solomon Lane, and he saves the day. He saves Ilsa as well, and they have a great little moment between them as well. I like that as well. And then we go back to the courtroom.
Back to the courtroom. We got a second courtroom scene.
Hearing sequence, or whatever. Yeah.
And I love it because they're like, a few weeks ago, you were in here calling for the IMF to be dismantled. And now you're saying that, they actually did something right. And then I love that Huntley quotes Ethan in the speech where he says,
not only does he say he's doing something right, they retroactively make it that he has been in charge the entire time, and that IMF had been, that the whole last courtroom sequence was all a smokescreen because they didn't know who to trust. That Huntley has been involved this entire time in supporting the IMF and everything else. And Rand's like, yeah, of course, and everything else. And the great line at the end, he does quote Ethan, and Brandt gets asked the question again. He's like, I can neither confer nor deny any allegations without respect or approval from the secretary. And then after we go out, and sure enough, secretary. We find out that now Alec Baldwin is the secretary and in charge. And it's like, okay, that's cool. I like that. I like Alec Baldwin now as part of the team.
Yeah. And you have Alec Baldwin also saying, desperate times, desperate measures. Yeah,
just like, I love it so much. So good.
It's like he has his arc was very similar to Brandt's, I feel. That's why those two are so good together.
Yeah, absolutely. Agreed, 100%.
So, yeah, that was the movie. Great movie.
Yeah,
I love it. It sets the tone for Fallout very well when we'll get to it, but when things all start coming crashing down.
I will say as of right now, I'll put it forward. I have not seen Dead Reckoning Part 1 like you have. 3 is my favorite, but for second place, it's always been 4, 5, and 6 always kind of flip around for me. Depends on which one I'm watching. If I watch 4, I'm like, oh god, I remember Ghost Protocol, I love it. And I watch this one, I'm like, fuck, Rogue Nation's fucking awesome. I gotta watch Fallout soon. We're probably go watch Fallout, man. Fallout.
There's a reason I say, I know there's this whole thing that I love Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is my favorite movie star. He's not my favorite actor. That's Heath Ledger, but like, he is my favorite movie star. But that bias aside, I do not say lightly that this is the most consistent movie franchise ever, because it is. It's a consistent hit after hit after hit. And it's the way they choose to like adapt. Even Dead Reckoning, like they do stuff that's both similar and vastly different, and it's still amazing. And you're just like, they just can't miss.
No, they really can't.
They can't miss. But with that being said, let's move into our final categories. We've got a few categories to go through here. The knock list. This is where we give our MVP for the movie that is not Ethan Hunt. It can be on the bad. It could be one of the villains. It could be one of the team. It could be anyone in between. And for me, there's no question it was Ilsa Faust. Ilsa, her ability to blur the lines between friend and foe, and then we get the personal stakes later on in the movie that you're like, oh, she has to do these things. She has to play into Lane's game. Otherwise, there's stakes for her as well, not just for Ethan, not just for the IMF. But it's not a case of she's playing both sides for her job. She's playing both sides for her life.
Right.
And then she offers Ethan the chance to get away. And it's just like, she's really willing to sacrifice everything. She's not just an agent that's playing both sides. She's willing to sacrifice everything to get out of this.
Everything. Yeah, you know what? I'll let you know. I might as well just go right now. I did toy with giving it back to Benji, because I did love a lot of Benji, what Benji did in this episode, in this installment.
Yep.
Even the hat trick, but I can't deny that I think Rebecca Ferguson really set a new standard for the especially for the women in the franchise as far as goes. We kind of always went from woman to woman to woman. Rebecca Ferguson kind of put her stamp on it. We knew right away that she's definitely got to come back because she is the one that's been as close to Ethan's, other side as anyone else has been, and it's about her charisma, and it's no slight against any of them like Paula Patton and everything that came before, but this is Rebecca Ferguson just had this chemistry with not just with Tom Cruise, but with the rest of the crew and with the franchise itself. She felt like she belonged in this role even more than any other ones had. I thought so. She added a great deal of suspense, action, comedy. Everything about this is she is the MVP by far.
Okay, nice. We agree on this one. I like it.
We do.
This is good. This is good. You didn't go for the 3 with Benji, but we've still got Fallout and Dead Reckoning Part 1 to go. So maybe we'll see. So we move on to our next. So I'm guessing you're picking Ilsa.
Yes, as my MVP. Yes, that's my MVP.
Okay,
yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So that being said, we'll move on to Count to 10. This is our favorite dramatic scene of the movie, named after the most dramatic scene in the entire franchise so far in Mission Impossible 3. This is, as I said, our favorite dramatic scene, and mine is the meeting with Ilsa in the train station, where she gives the third option to say go away with her.
Right.
You see Ethan wants to.
Yeah.
He has that brief moment where he's like, yeah, there's a train right there. We could leave. We could go right now. But he knows how this goes. He's tried this before. He knows it doesn't end well for either party. Even a party like his wife, who was completely innocent, completely out of the game. It nearly cost her life.
Right.
So 2 people that are being hunted, 2 people on the run. I know she's trying to romanticize it, like we can be anyone, we can do anything. But he has that moment where he's like, you think he might go for it, but then he's just like, I can't do it.
So good. Yeah, that is a very powerful moment, and it really serves. It I will say it is slightly undercut. I mean, I talked about it before, how I mentioned that he's married to Julia, but Rebecca Ferguson's obviously more who can live in that world more. That makes sense more. But the fact that he is married to her, we saw at the end of 4, with that being kind of almost unresolved in a way, it kind of undercuts it just a little bit because you feel like Tom Cruise would have to take care of it. He couldn't go away with her completely without Julia being around, or somehow to some kind of closure with Julia before this happened. But I do appreciate that one very much, quite a bit. But not for me. That's not my favorite. My favorite, surprisingly, shock you, is actually a Benji moment. And one of my favorite moments is when after they have, he goes over and he helps him out and everything else. They have this moment where Ethan Hunt just goes on goes on, what's the word I'm looking for? On zone, on autopilot. It was an autopilot. Okay. And he's like, kind of like, okay, well, we're going to get you back. We don't, you can't be around here. And he's trying to send him back and away from him so that he can continue the search for Solomon and Simon Pegg could be safe. Benji could be safe going back to the office and doing that thing. And Benji has this moment where he's like, fuck you. I'm your friend. I am here to help you. Like you don't get to decide that, Ethan. He's like, I want to make you safe. You don't. It's that one big line. He's like, you don't get to decide that. I make my own decisions, and like
I'm a field agent.
I am a field agent, and I'm here to help you. This is like, and like it stops Ethan like in his tracks. Ethan's like doing, he's like, okay, yeah, we're doing, no. He's like talking to a child. Like, no. You don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. And then he comes out. And he's like, boom. Like Ethan kind of stops and stares at him. He's like, okay.
Yeah.
It was a very powerful moment for me. It's Benji stepping up. It's that measure of friendship when connected to the polygraph sequence at the beginning. You see how much Ethan means to Benji and how Benji actually means to Ethan in a way. It's a very powerful one. It's my favorite definitely of this movie. One of my favorites of the franchise. It actually is probably top 5, top 3 of the franchise so far for me. And I know it's subtle, and it's a little subtle for some people, and there's not a whole lot going on, but it hit me the right way.
Yeah, I mean, when you said it was a Benji moment, I thought you were going to go to the polygraph test. That's how, like, it is a small moment, but it is a really powerful one because it's almost like you learn at that moment that Ethan, he loves Benji, he respected Benji, but it's almost like he didn't have faith in Benji.
Right.
Until that moment.
He saw him in a different light.
Yeah.
So good. I love it. It's a moment where he needed to happen to make him. That's kind of why I say his arrival as a field agent really is that moment to me. It's kind of like because he did everything with him and he did everything. He's like, I'm not going home. This is my life now. Whether you care, I don't care what you think. Like, I am here. This is my job.
Yeah.
So good.
Moving on to our next category. God damn, you caught me with that one. You caught me off guard with that one. I like that. I'm sitting there thinking about it. That was a good one. You caught me off with it. Our next category, light the fuse, which is our favorite action scenes. And I went first with the last one because I wanted you to take first on this one because you mentioned it briefly earlier. What is your favorite action scene in this movie?
Well, I did mention it. Like I said, it is the chase sequence. There's nothing that really can top. I mean, you have the airplane sequence, which is great, but it kind of like that was more a stunt than action sequence comparatively. I did almost put the whole initial fight scene between Ethan and Ilsa versus the Bone Doctor. That whole thing, because that was a great little tete-a-tete there. You can't go wrong with the opera action sequence as well. We mentioned the jumping from back to forth. There's a lot to love action-wise in the sequence, but to me, the car chase into the motorcycle chase and everything else is pretty much defines this movie because you have those bits of humor, like we said, the handbrake and the moment of discovery. You have the flipping cars. You have Tom Cruise having died, getting out of the flipping cars, going on a motorcycle, and still chasing him down in the motorcycle with the Ragga Burgers and leading the role, the charge, so to speak. There, the team finally getting back together. This is where it seems like the team is there, and almost feels like this is like the next stage of the movie starts here. It's well shot, it's well directed. The charisma's there, and watching Tom Cruise do his thing. I can't say any other sequence in the film doesn't quite live up to that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll piggyback off of that because mine is actually the motorcycle part of that chase. Right. Riding a motorcycle is so damn difficult. Like, a lot of people would think that you're just sitting on there if you keep your balance good. No, if you hit like something small on the ground, it can send you can high slide off the front of your bike and go flying. So I'm not even sure if it was Ethan, if it was Tom Cruise on the bike, but whoever was on the bike doing those kind of maneuvers while acting as if they were under gunfire was just blew my mind. But there was also like a dramatic moment to that chase of like, what's Ethan gonna do when he catches her?
Right, yeah. We don't know at that point. It's like, what's gonna happen?
Because at this moment, like, she's left him for dead,
right,
and taken the disc, and it's just like, what the hell is he gonna do when he catches up with her? Is he gonna kill her? We don't know.
Right. It's a good point. It's a great point. Yeah, I know, but that's why I'm right there with you. You chose more specific of the motorcycle sequence. I chose the whole chase sequence in general because I like the comedic part of the thing.
I just prefer bikes to cars. You know what I mean? I'm a motorbike guy. But either way, it was a great chase, and I cannot wait for all of you to see the car chase that comes up in the new movie.
Don't tell me
anymore. I mean, you've already seen like parts of it in the trailers, but
yeah, absolutely.
Moving on to our final category, should you choose to accept it? This is where we take one character from the movie and who we would like to see them return in Dead Reckoning Part 1.
Or 2.
This is a little difficult for me because obviously I've seen it, but I'm taking this as I haven't seen the movie.
Yeah, because we don't want to, no spoilers, obviously.
No
and
spoilers.
You might say somebody who actually does reappear in Dead Reckoning.
Exactly. So,
but this is like not anything. This is what you would see if you hadn't seen. This is what you would have picked.
That's exactly it. If I hadn't seen the movie, this is what I would have picked, and it's Solomon Lane.
Okay. All right, that's fair.
Because potential Fallout spoilers, we don't know what happens to him.
Right. I gotta watch that movie again. We don't. It happens at the end. I don't remember.
No, it just says he's caught. Like
Right.
he doesn't get executed for his crimes or anything.
That's fair.
So
I mean, he escaped in Fallout, obviously, so he can escape again easily at this point. It seems like.
Exactly.
All right.
So, the potential of having Solomon Lane, Kittredge, Max, all of them together,
pretty good.
Like a Sinister Six kind of a deal.
Ooh, that'd be kind of cool. That would be kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie, that would be very kind of cool. All right. For me, I kind of, like I said before, I want to kind of go Brant because I love Jeremy Renner in the role. I miss him in Fallout for sure. But I'll take that as an overall want. And so more specific from this movie, instead of just from the both movies he was in before, I'm going to choose. I guess there's no surprise to a degree. Give me Tom Hollander again. Give me the Prime Minister to come back somehow. I don't know how, but get him in any kind of way, shape, or form. He could be involved in like some kind of United Nations kind of like oversight or something to that effect. I have no idea. Give it to me either way. Anytime you put Tom Hollander in the movie, it makes it more interesting to me. So give me more Hollander.
Yeah,
mark it down. Send it to the bank.
Wasn't expecting that. Wasn't expecting that, but I am fully on board. Well, that's another episode in the books. Another episode of MI Declassified in the books. Next we've got the last one before Dead Reckoning.
Yeah, we actually, here's a quick schedule. Because we usually been doing these things weekly or bi-weekly and things of that nature. Our schedule is really screwed up since my COVID illness. I'm trying to play catch up. So here's what's going to happen. You're watching this on Saturday. You're watching this on Friday. We are going to record the Mission Impossible Fallout episode on Saturday. You're going to see that on Sunday. And then I'm going to be heading off on Monday to the advanced screening of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, which means we will get a MI Declassified next week. We're going to get 3 MI Declassifieds in the span of like 6 or 7 days. And we're going to MI Dead Reckoning Part 1, MI Declassified. I cannot wait. For it. Hopefully, and you can also, like I said, go check the review that Matty's going to post a little bit. We're recording it after this, but we're going to put it up right away. We're going to talk about Dead Reckoning in a non-spoiler capacity, and then come back for next week where we talk about it in a very spoilerish capacity. So, yeah, that should be a lot of fun. I can't wait. I really can't wait.
Cool. Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to watch it again. Especially this time, I'm going to be watching it on a bigger screen, the BFI IMAX, which is like the biggest IMAX in Europe.
Yeah, I'm going IMAX for sure. I could not see this one. Some movies I like to see a lot of movies in IMAX anyway, but like there's some movies I really want to see in IMAX. This is one.
I am going to tell you guys this. Anyone who's listening to this, watching this, go watch this on the biggest screen with the best sound system you can find in your area. I know there's a lot of talk right now about blockbuster movies in the summer flopping. This one cannot lose. I fully believe that Tom Cruise here, if this doesn't get a Best Picture nomination, I swear to God,
really?
that there is something very wrong.
Well, all righty then. My goodness, that is wow. All right.
Fair enough. That bombshell. Man of 1,000 streams, PLD. Where can people find you online?
You can find me at Paul _Denuzio on Twitter. You can find me on Threads now, Paul Denuzio, my same as Instagram. I never really used Instagram very much. I can't lie, but I think I will be using Threads more and more. I do enjoy Threads so far. You can find me on PLD products all over the place. We've got a lot of stuff coming up now as we catch up. Two Beat Up for White Dudes on Film is finally returning. You'll get our episode on Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Finally, that's going to come down this week. I believe I said Friday, right? Is that what I said? Is that what I'm doing that? Yeah. So yes, we're going to put that. I'm recording it on Friday, and I'm going to put it on the channel on Saturday. And then next Tuesday, we will record our Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny episode, which I really can't wait to talk about. Me and PJ honestly haven't talked to each other as much about the new one. We kind of had gave our overall kind of like we liked it or didn't like it kind of thing, and I'll save that for later. But I'm really interested to talk to him about that. We got a lot of other stuff coming up too. We got a review of the series is starting now. We're going to start with the weekly series being the go, and Crown Jewels is always in the works. We took the week off as part of our scheduling mishaps or whatever, but next week we're going into the Night at the Opera tours, the live editions of some songs there, and anything else. Holy Snokes is going to finally make its return. Yes, on a special day. We've had a couple of days off because of our whole we want to get Dead Reckoning out. We're going to record Holy Snokes on Wednesday like usual, but we're going to probably debut it on Thursday. And then following week on the 19th on Wednesday, we'll go back to our usual Wednesday slot. And finally, in July, Harris Dance first episode will make an appearance. Guaranteed. This time, guaranteed.
Yes. Yes, the people have been waiting. The people have been demanding. The Harris Dance come. And it's finally. If people want to support the channel, as I say, leave a like, leave a comment. Let us know what was fill out your versions of the categories. Who do you want to see come back? What's your count to 10 moment? What's your light the fuse moment? Who would you put in the knock list? With that being said, if you want to support the channel, leave a like, leave a comment.
Join patreon.com.
You can join Patreon. Talk about the Patreon. What we got going on over there?
Got some great patrons like Austin Cadell, Matthew Curran, Brendan Buckingham, Jeff Algerman. Got a great crew over there. Great chat going. We had some content last month, some extra content. We had my PLD Projects Patreon podcast, where I get to talk about all the stuff that I don't get to talk about in all the other streams I get to do. We have some live hangs we're going to do, and hopefully we're going to do some more extra content with you, me, PJ, and the whole crew at some point. Hopefully have some kind of big, deep discussions. I have a lot of fun there as well. So yeah, join them if you can. Obviously, if you can't, I completely understand. The way you best support us is get the word out. Like, subscribe, share, let people know we're here. Let me know what you think. I'd love to have you guys around. So yeah.
And you guys can find me on Twitter for now until Tom Cruise follows me on Threads, which is when I will be departing. I put out a tweet today that I will not be leaving Twitter until Tom Cruise follows me on Threads. He's not on there quite yet, so I guess I'm waiting. Happy birthday to Tom Cruise the other way, by the way. Turned 61 years old. And he spent it at the movie premiere in I think Sydney.
I can barely stand up half the time at 47. I get up out of bed. I'm like, back. And he's doing this stuff at 61. My God. I
was actually talking to someone today. I was talking about that we're recording this podcast, and she said, you wouldn't think that she was like, he's 61. I was like, yeah. But you can find me on Instagram, Matty_Gunner. Same on Threads. Just go onto the Instagram profile. It's got the little button there you can follow. And that's it. You can find my band Mourner, MOURNER, on all DSPs. You can find me here for Holy Snokes, coming back from next week. And with that being said, we are officially disavowed.